I'm going to do a video of my technique of removing paint from a car, and this is a good section to do because I don't know why, but when I did the other side right in this vertical section here, it was extremely hard to get off. I don't know why. Maybe because it didn't get as much sun or direct sunlight as the top, so the paint's not as deteriorated. But first thing I did was I went over the top with some 40 grit in my DA and just roughed it up. I think it helps the paint remover work. And paint remover I'm using, it's Jasco, Jasco, comes from Lowe's. I got it at Lowe's. Doesn't matter. All paint remover is sorry these days. Back in the day, the old aircraft paint remover was the best. You could put that stuff on, it would take it down to bare metal in just a little while. But you know, these environmental nuts have made them take the good stuff out of it, so it just don't work that well anymore. But first thing I do is I coat it down with this paint remover, and this first coat, all it's going to do is soften that top layer. You'll see when I go to take it off, it's not going to do much at all, but it will soften that color, that white. This car was originally come from the factory with a kind of a metallic green with a white top, and it looks like the factory painted the whole car green, come back and taped it up and painted a white top on top of it, because there's primer, green paint, white paint, and then later on an owner, he painted the whole car white, so it's got another layer of white on top of that. All of it is very deteriorated over the years. The scratches, you can see the scratches in it that have exposed metal, and so there's a lot of rust on it, but we'll take care of that too. So anyway, I put the first coat on here. That'll just soften the top layer. I'll let that set for about 15-20 minutes, and we'll come back and do the next step. Okay, let's see how we're doing here. This second coat of paint remover has been on for about 30 minutes. Let's see. You can see we got down, we can see some primer, but still a lot of white paint. So just like the other side, this is going to take 3 coats of paint remover. I do a couple of square feet at a time, and I've done what's left of the rear quarters. Part of the quarters have been cut off, waiting for new quarters, and done about 3/4 of the top door jambs, and that's taken me 2 days. So this is going to be about a 3-day job, doing it a couple of square feet at a time. So let me put another coat of paint remover on here and go from there. Okay, this has been on here for a while, so let's see what we got here. You can see that we got it now coming down to the primer. And, so white paint is dissolving. A couple of places here where the white don't want to let go, but we'll take care of that the next step. Okay, now I'm going to wipe off this gunk. I used paper towels or paper rags. Started off using regular cloth rags, but they gum up so fast, and these paper rags, you can, when they get all gummed up, you can just throw them in the floor and keep on working. So now the next step, we don't even have to wait on. In fact, we want to leave a little bit of that paint remover on there. What I'm going to do, this is plain old lacquer thinner. Whenever you mix lacquer thinner and paint remover, good things happen. You can see it's taken off that primer and also taken off some of that stubborn white paint that didn't want to come off. Wipe it off every now and with some paper towels. Even that big glob of stubborn white paint, that lacquer thinner and that paint remover mixed up does a good job. I can see why that has a little trouble. There's actually some rust under that, surface rust, making that paint stick a little better. I actually think this primer, this red primer put on at the factory, I believe it's probably lacquer primer because it just dissolves under that lacquer thinner. The white paint don't, or the green paint, none of the finished paint really dissolves all that well, but the primer does. Got a feeling it's probably like a primer. So that's lacquer primer and steel wool. I'm using steel wool, and that takes care of it. So we're down to bare metal. Now the next step, sometimes there is some stubborn white paint left, and the next step I'll take my 40 grit DA and go over it and get anything that's left. I don't worry too much about the red primer. It ain't gonna hurt for some of that to be on there. In fact, that's probably good. It's baked on originally, and it's not gonna hurt a thing if some of that's left, but I do want to get all of that finish coat off. So there we are. I'll now go up here and start another 2 foot square, or 2 square feet of space, and got about a third of the top left to do. Okay, next step. I take my high quality Harbor Freight DA with some 40 grit on it, and I go over everything I've taken the paint off of. That gets all of that stubborn finish paint that's still hanging on. Also takes off a lot of that the residue of the paint remover, and cleans it up and gets ready for the next step. Okay, next step. This is a mixture of about 50% phosphoric acid and 50% water. And as far as I'm concerned, this is a miracle chemical. I've used this for years on cars. Phosphoric acid it doesn't destroy the rust, or I guess you could say it destroys it. It converts it to some kind of carbon element so that it will never cause you any trouble. But you can put it on just brown rust, crusty rust, and it turns it black. Different from like Pour 15. Pour 15 smothers rust. As long as it can't get air, it won't rust. And that's good stuff, and I use a lot of it. But for bare metal, especially something that's had surface rust on it, you can't beat this phosphoric acid. Another benefit to it is it leaves a coating so that it won't get surface rust on it until you can get it painted. And so I just put it on kind of generously. I'll be on the top of the car now where you can't see, but I'll work my way down. Like I say, this will convert any rust that's up there. And this one had a lot of, I don't know how this car got so scratched, but that old paint, there's scratches on it, and of course that exposed metal, and so you got a lot of rust scratches all over it. I got as much of it as I could with the DA, and so now I'll put this phosphoric acid on it, and that'll convert it to an innate subject. Turns the metal a kind of a fuzzy looking gray. I've got friends that use this. If you ever use rust mort, that's all rust mort is phosphoric acid. But I've got friends that use phosphoric acid or rust mort, and they paint directly. They don't even clean it off, and they paint directly over it. I never had guts to do that. I will say I've never seen one of their paint jobs come off or blister or anything, so I don't know, maybe you could, but I never was comfortable. So after I've soaked it down good, I wipe the excess off of it. Doesn't need to be much on it. And that'll protect that for a long, long time until I can get some primer on it. I didn't finish my thought. So what I do is, before I prime this car, I take some number 80 and I wet sand all of this and with number 80 and get all of that phosphoric acid and whatever else that's on it off. Mix a little baking soda in the water to neutralize the acid, and that cleans it up good and gives a good surface for the primer. I've soaked everything down now with phosphoric acid, and as you can see, that's 2 or 3 days ago, and it's still gray metal. That phosphoric acid will leave a coating, keeps it from rusting till I can get some primer on it. Right here in the corner of this top, in fact it's on both sides, quite a bit of rust. I've covered it up with tape, you can't see now, but this area was pitted real bad, but not eaten through, thank God. But way down in the gutter, and I don't think you can see it, but down in the gutter there is some holes about 1/8 of an inch in diameter. So the way I'm gonna fix that without any welding or cutting or anything, I have cut me some pieces of fiberglass, little small pieces of fiberglass. So what I'll do is I'll soak it down with Pour 15 and stuff this fiberglass in on top of it, and put some more Pour 15 on top of that, and it'll dry rock hard and solve the problem without any cutting or welding or anything. You can use Pour 15 and fiberglass to fix a lot of things. Not everything, but some things. And you'll have to use your own judgment as to where it's at and whether you think it's a solution or not. But I'll guarantee you this is a better solution than doing a lot of cutting and welding around this top. Alright, I fixed this corner. If you look, you can see a little bit of that fiberglass poking up there. I can cut that off with a knife, I hope. And I've gone around the whole drip thing there with Pour 15. The reason I tape it up, because one of the bittersweet things about Pour 15 is when it dries hard as a rock. I mean, if you get it on places that you don't want it on, you have to grind it off. It's tough stuff. And so I taped up around that gutter so I wouldn't get it all over the body and all over the outside of the gutter. And the other thing I'll have to do is I got to wait till it dries a little bit so I can pull that tape up, because if I leave that tape on there until it's thoroughly dried, I can't get the tape off. It wicks up underneath the tape on the edges and then dries hard, and you can't get it off. Especially in this gutter. Trying to work inside of these gutters is not a good thing. So anyway, it's any rust that was in that gutter. What happens over the years is that seam sealer they put in there gets hard and cracks, and water gets underneath it and you get rust in that gutter. So coat it down good with Pour 15, then I'll put some seam sealer on top of it, of course, before I paint it, and that ought to be there for a long time. Another thing I did, I don't know if you can see it or not, but right in this corner when I put that floor pan in, I cut my metal just about a 1/2 inch too short. Left a 1/2 inch gap in that corner. And I could cut a piece of 1/2 inch metal about 2 inches long and try welding it in there. But this is a better solution. And just take you some Pour 15, soak it down right good, put your little fiberglass over it, and then soak that down with Pour 15. And I'll guarantee you that'll be there when all of us are gone. Pour 15 kills any rust that's in the area and fills up that gap so we don't get fumes inside the car any more than have to. So some people might say that's jackleg, but it works well, and anything that works and works well is not jackleg. Alright, this is my next step. If you go on the internet and search around and ask about spraying primer over any of these phosphoric acid rust converters, you'll get all kinds of opinions. Some of them just say just spray over top of it'll work fine. Some say no. But this is what I've done for probably 40 years, and it works for me, and I feel more comfortable with it. After I have coated everything with phosphoric acid, and this one is set about 2 weeks, And as I was previously stated, that phosphoric acid will leave a coating where it won't rust until you can get some primer on it. But I've got a mixture here of just water, soap, and a little bit of baking soda. The baking soda will neutralize any acid that's left on there. And some number 80 wet and dry sandpaper. And so I go over it real well with this number 80, with this mixture of soap and baking soda. I've sprayed a little 2K primer on it, on most of it anyway. At least everything I'd taken down to bare metal with the paint remover. And that'll protect it, keep it from rusting.